Hands up if you've ever heard of ChatGPT. Wow, okay, that surprised me.
It's a regular science class at St Paul's School in Brisbane. But instead of Bunsen burners and test tubes, these students are experimenting with a much more controversial tool.
And within a few seconds, these were some of the responses that it was able to come up with.
They're using ChatGPT, an online chatbot that can write almost anything and answer questions with information sourced from the internet.
You can ask it just any questions, use it kind of like a Google, I guess.
The artificial intelligence program goes further than that. It can also write computer programs, sentences or whole essays with strikingly fluid and human-like responses.
I've been involved in the AI area for 30 years, and it's just stunning how much progress has been made in the last few years.
So how does it work? Well, let's take a pretty basic example. Write me an introduction to a TV news story about ChatGPT and cheating. And almost instantly, it's starting to write a paragraph. It's pretty good. And it's pretty much done my job for me.
One of the students who was speaking to you today actually put in, what do you think 7:30 might actually ask me? And it spat out all these questions, which really was pretty much what the interviewer was going to ask. So it's a pretty powerful piece of technology.
Write essays for you, write computer code.
And with better grammar than a grade school teacher.
It gets a lot of things wrong.
Plagiarism in classrooms.
I think it's definitely a breakthrough that's going to lead to a lot of change.
Since its release in December, it's courted controversy in schools and universities around the world for its potential to make cheating harder to detect.
We've decided to block ChatGPT from our education network.
It's been banned at public schools in all states except South Australia.
What's really important for us is that for classwork, for students' work in schools, it is their own original work. It's really important that teachers know what students know, what they've mastered and their gaps in their knowledge.
But some private schools, like St Paul's in Brisbane, have embraced it.
I haven't used it myself personally, but I've certainly been shown what it can do by a number of staff and people who are working at the school. I'm confident we're not walking blind into it.
Not written though, multimodal.
It's only been a few weeks since these St Paul's students started using ChatGPT in the classroom, but they're already keenly aware of the limitations of the technology.
Yes, it can give you direct answers, but it doesn't give you certain skills like problem solving.
Technologies can be used for good or bad, but it comes down to the student.
Headmaster Paul Browning says the school is taking steps to reduce the possibility of cheating during tests, but he says banning it completely would be impossible.
Certainly in examination situations, they won't be able to access it because they won't have technology to actually access it in an exam room. But what's to stop a student using it at home? That is the reality. You can't hold back that tide. And the knee-jerk reaction of many schools and universities to say we must ban it because this is a terrible thing. People are just going to use it to cheat. Well, no, it really causes people, I think, or should cause them to think, well, what should education be about? It can't be about just content delivery and regurgitation of what they've learned.
The Federal Education Minister did not respond to 730's requests for an interview. His Queensland counterpart also declined, but in a statement said access is currently blocked, but they're assessing its appropriateness. As the academic year gets underway, these university students in Melbourne say ChatGPT is already posing a threat to the integrity of the assessment process.
One of my friends is studying psychology, and his exams were online, and he said that he essentially asked most of at least the long questions. He just put them into ChatGPT and it gave him good answers. He submitted it and he scored very highly.
Australian academic Christopher Manning is based at Stanford University, where he's a global expert in the type of artificial intelligence behind the technology. He warns at university level it's going to be difficult to stop cheating.
I mean, it is a very real concern, and I'll even say it's a huge problem. But I will also say, yeah, the horse has left the gate. And while there mitigations and different things to do to think of. The genie isn't likely to be stuffed back in the bottle.
I also had another friend who was just trying it out with, I think it was chemistry, and he asked it a few questions. I think for the multiple choice, he put in the questions and asked to give it the responses. Sometimes it did get it wrong.
It's something ChatGPT's CEO acknowledged himself in this tweet, saying we have lots of work to do on robustness and truthfulness.
Some universities and schools have talked about banning it, but how feasible do you think that would be?
I don't know how you would do that. There'd be so many ways of accessing that software.
I guess that universities could return to more closed book exam type assessments in order to try to prevent students from using ChatGPT.
There's always been avenues of getting an unethical pass in uni. Ultimately, you've got to consider what are you actually going to get out of uni if you do that.
Unlike secondary schools, universities are still considering how they'll tackle the technology. But Professor Alex Steele from UNSW is warning students that using ChatGPT in their assignments is cheating.
There doesn't seem to be much point in trying to ban AI. The more important aspect is trying to make sure that our students understand when it's appropriate to use AI and when it's appropriate to trust human judgment and human critical thinking. So the university has a long-standing policy that it's academic misconduct to present work as your own if it is not your own.
But the problem with ChatGPT is it's hard to tell when it's been used in an essay.
In this first half of the year at least, I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation in universities to find out which assessments are the most AI resistant. The universities themselves are going to be redesigning text-based assessments so that it's going to be harder for a ChatGPT or other AI platform to create an answer that's plausible.
With the technology being developed and upgraded so quickly, it's hard to know what the future holds and what sort of impact this latest form of artificial intelligence will have on schools and universities. So I thought I'd ask the chatbot itself. And it has an answer. It says it's likely to become more sophisticated, but there will be challenges.
We can't hold back the tide and say, let's ban it from our classrooms. We've really got to embrace what's actually happening, but rethink how we educate young people so they can survive in a world dominated by AI.